Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right. It's been a little while since the preseason, since I had my last guest on. So decided to bring him back. Mac, man, from 92. Well, not Mac, man. That's not Mac's name, but Mac. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. He's also he works on the Browns broadcast. How you doing, man? Browns going to London. You going to London? You feeling good?
I'm feeling good. I'm here physically. I'm getting ready, bracing for the entire trip. First time overseas in my life, so I'm excited for that, but should be a good time. Really excited to get it going.
You gonna get the local food there, or you gonna go to the English McDonald's? Because I'm telling you right now, if I ever went to London, all chains. I'm not trying nothing local.
Look, whenever we travel, I'm a big food guy, so I'm like, I got to try some of the stuff, but I've heard it's different. I'm aware it's different, so
What they
I'm
call
at least
chips
curious.
out there, crisp.
Yes.
They call it like crisp. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good, man. Every time I've ever heard of London food, I'm just like, that don't sound like it's good, right? Like that, and like people talk a lot about French food, but like I've never had the desire.
I'm cool with what I got. I know what I like. I got what I like. That's all I need.
The only people I've ever seen eat French food are like rich people on sitcoms. You know what I mean? Like, like when they go to a fancy, we go to this French spot. But I've never myself personally been like, yeah, let's go. I don't even know where the French spots are. Like, the most French shit I've ever eaten is New Orleans. That's pretty good. Like,
what is it? I when we went to New Orleans last year, I had somebody tell me like, "Oh, you need to try a beignet," and I was like,
"Oh yeah, fire."
I didn't get a chance to.
You didn't
I
get a
was
chance
like,
to?
we were walking around. I'm just like, yeah, if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't,
no. Yeah, you need to try that beignet.
Okay. All right. I'll try to get on that next time. That's on me.
And you need to go to Cafe DuPont to do it. Yeah. You need to go to the beignet place, right? You need to do it right. But yeah, it's absolutely worth it. Somebody made me do the same exact thing. I did it, and I was like, yeah, that was worth it. That was absolutely worth it. Bring cash if you go to Cafe DuPont. It's faster.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. By the way, free tips out there for everybody. But we're not here to talk about beignets or England. We're here to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Just made the switch to DILLON Gabriel. Announced it on Wednesday. I don't know when I'm going to be putting this video up, but what I do find interesting, right, is that this seems like a welcome move from leadership, right? It doesn't feel like, as much as like for me personally, I'm from the outside looking in, I'm like, I'm not putting somebody in the first 6 weeks of this season, right? Like,
right.
If I could avoid it, right? But it does seem like, from Joe, like it was interesting that Joe did media today. Mm-hmm. Kind of pumped up DILLON Gabriel, right? Like that was interesting, right? What's your vibe about DILLON from what you've been able to see from your vantage point, and how he's been received by the team, and how they expect this thing to go? Because this is a rough spot, for a rookie to be put in, but they feel like, do you get the feeling that they're just kind of hoping this works out, or do you get the feeling that they think, hey, no, this kid, we've seen stuff, we think he can, succeed or at least tread water in this kind of sea?
I think that when it comes to how the team kind of views DILLON, especially, I think that you kind of saw in the preseason a little bit and how they kind of rolled things out for him. Understanding the fact that, in the Philadelphia game, it was, getting him out there, getting a couple of routine throws going, and really kind of getting the offense and really kind of having a sense of calm when it comes to him being at the quarterback position. I think that there were times where in the first couple of weeks where Joe just it felt like he was kind of pressing at times where, if he felt a little bit too much pressure, he would dump it off in the Packers game. It wouldn't really look downfield. Then this past week, it almost felt like he did that against the Ravens at times. and then he would throw it down short because they didn't want to take too many opportunities downfield. Didn't really want to turn the ball over. Then they're trying to press by having him look downfield, but he's just missing the open plays that are down that are just in the flat that are just his checkdowns. Like it felt like he was almost overthinking it at a certain point and trying to avoid turnover and trying to tread water, but it really was just holding back at a certain point. And I think that also lack of mobility from him at a certain point also hurt where the offense kind of was at that point. But when it comes to Dillon, and I think that what they kind of expect out of him is just like I mentioned too, like the way that he processes, and I know that gets constantly brought up over and over and over again, but the fact that he's able to, all right, I can go to this read, I can go to this read. He does what you expect out of your quarterback, and at least just having the sense of, all right, we know that he's going to get through his reads. We know that he knows where to look. He knows that exactly where his receivers are supposed to be, and he can plant the ball there. Like that's what I think the expectation is for him. But I also think too that you might see them kind of slowly roll this out a little bit in terms of maybe going back to the run game a little bit, give him a little bit of help in the run game, especially with what you've seen out of Quinshawn Judkins over the last couple of weeks, and especially too Dylan Sampson also in the passing game. The last couple of weeks, I've actually been impressed with the way that the running backs between Judkins and then Jerome Ford obviously had that great pass block on Aiden Hutchinson in the last game. Getting that extra protection and being able to create a little bit that I think that it gives the offense a little bit more flexibility, which I think that in turn should help out guys like Harold Fannin, creating space a little bit more, and Isaiah Bond, who I mean, dude, from seeing him in person, like flat out fast, like absolutely different. And the way that he's able to separate consistently, I think is massive. And I think that if you have a quarterback that, Joe can make all the throws, but it was clear that there was something off when it came to the decision making, that either he was holding back, trying to avoid turnovers, or he was then trying to avoid some of the short throws in order to create some of those big plays on the field, even when they weren't there. And so it was clear that there was something off there, at least from my vantage point. And so in seeing all of that, I do think that Dillon gives you an opportunity to have a little bit more consistency at the quarterback position that I think that we haven't really had so far this year with Joe Flacco.
Yeah. Now, that's another thing I want to kind of talk about here, right? Because, I agree that Joe Flacco had some issues, right, going into this game. I think it was undeniable, right? You watch the tape, there's some issues. But there's a question of like, hey, well, how did Joe get to this point? Like, what's going on here, right? Because we know Joe Flacco can read a football field, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's like, how do you get to this point? And I think some of the circumstances around him kind of helped accelerate what looks like to be a bit of a fall off here for Joe. And I think the big question here is like, okay, there's the question of how you feel about Dillon, right? And this is where I think the general audience kind of has a disconnect, right? Because it's like, oh, well, you feel good about Dillon, just put him out there. And it's like, there's that question of how you feel about Dillon. Yeah. There's also the question of like, hey, do you think the circumstances around the quarterback is just going to create another situation where this guy can't see, right? Mm-hmm. Cornelius Lucas, 28 pressures in 4 weeks. That's not just bad. That's abysmal. That's a season worth of pressures right there. Yeah. In 3.5 games, mind you, right? He didn't even start week 1. So like you have Corn Lucas giving up, 9 pressures a game almost. That's not going to help a quarterback develop good habits to develop the trust that they need. Because like, it's not just the way I want to describe this is this. It's not just your literal ability to see that allows you to have vision at the quarterback position. There's like trust that you have to have of other people doing their job in order for you to get to that point, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't trust that you're going to have a reasonable time to make a decision, you're going to try to make that decision before you even hike the ball, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to try to do things to free yourself up the second you think that something might be up, right? And all of those things compound on each other and it makes you make a bad decision. Like if you're Joe Flacco and you're like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Like, I don't trust him. Look at that alignment. They're 3-by-1 here. I'm just going to get rid of this thing quick, throw it to David Njoku on the thing. And then you look at the iPad here like, hey, man, the dig was wide open, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, the dig was wide open. So the next time, you try to wait for the dig to open up and then maybe you get sacked. Or so the next time you get that same play, the same coverage, you're like, I'm just going to throw it. And
You're chasing your own
yeah.
play.
Yeah, and it's like you're fighting ghosts, right?
Yeah.
And you're not able to see anything at that point. And that's how somebody who we know can read a defense, we know can anticipate, do all this stuff. We've seen him do it in this offense specifically. Looks like how Joe Flacco is looking right now, right? Like I think one of the things I said after I watched the film breakdown, I was like, there's no way playing is going to help him through this, right? He has to just sit the bench at this point. And then maybe if he plays later, he might be better, but there's no playing your way through this. He's all jumbled up right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that to also happen to Dillon.
Right.
And I think that's where like some people aren't really understanding. We're like, oh, you got to find out about Dillon. It's like, I want to put him in a situation where I do think I could find out anything about him. But if you put somebody in a shit situation and they look like shit, you didn't find out anything.
Yeah.
You just confirm that the situation is shitty.
Yeah.
So do you feel like they're going to be able to get, the tackles up early enough? Like, Cam Robinson, is he going to be able to play this week? Like, are they going to be able to kind of fix some of this stuff around the quarterback position to a point to where it is going to give Dillon, get the Browns a chance to actually even learn anything about Dillon?
Yeah, and that's kind of why, I mentioned too the fact that like I think that they're going to lean more into the ground game and, attempt to establish the play action a little bit in that sense because again, when it came to Joe, you were limited just because again, the guy's 40 years old. Like you're not a spring chicken anymore. You're going to lose some of that, athleticism over the years. Like it's just natural. But because of that, again, you can maybe shift the pocket a little bit more. You can, maybe go into more of the play action a little bit more. But because of that, again, I think that is it going to be like week one? And I know like when it comes to Twitter and everything like that, clearly everybody's extremely patient. So, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think that, kind of like how, at least for me, my expectation going into the year was maybe you see that turn after week 6 against Pittsburgh. So this is a little early than I expected. But at the same time, if you're able to go ahead and lean on Quincy Judkins, who again, the last few weeks have played up against a couple of good defenses in Detroit and Green Bay, and able to have a lot of great results. If you're able to lean on him, if you're able to lean on Dylan Sampson, and then you're able to go ahead and take that crowded pot or take that crowded box and able to go ahead and maybe get an Isaiah Bond down the field or get a Jerry Jeudy down the field. Like if you're able to go ahead and do that with Dillon, all of a sudden you get that confidence. I think you can learn some things about other pieces, but I think that when it comes to the offensive line and how they've shifted things around, that I'm willing to give more of a pass as the next couple of weeks kind of develop to see how that works out. As for Cam Robinson, I don't know if he'll be ready for this week. Although, I mean, the guy's been sitting on the bench in Houston, which we all know how bad Houston is. So, maybe he's been ready for this. But at the same time, getting him up to speed, maybe kind of playing it more simplistic. But also to their credit, I mean, they had KT Leviston able to go ahead and come in and play and start multiple weeks now. After, the way that things kind of played out at the beginning of the year, trading for him literally the same week of week 1.
Well, you bring up Cam Robinson, and we're definitely going to get into Cam Robinson here. But before we do that, got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Hey, real quick, I want to tell you about a little bit of a sleeper of an app called Sleeper. Has fantasy, has news feed, has picks. You can do it all on the Sleeper app. Make sure you use it. Sign up using the promo code Worst Take and get to 100% match on up to $100 when you use promo code Worst Take. Again, 100% match for up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. You have a great day. Now let's continue the video. All right, so we're back, and you mentioned Cam Robinson, right? Who is a very interesting player, right? So I was looking into because the first question I have with a guy like him is like, hey, why did you get benched so early in the season, right? I don't think his benching had much to do with performance because I watched his game week 1. He was fine. He wasn't like amazing, but he was fine. But I think he got a good old, and this to put that damn cup down. Yeah, I got beef with the fever now.
Had to wait till we were recording to break that one out.
Yeah. That was smooth. That was smooth. But I think he got this doesn't say great things about what's going on in Houston. A good old political benching, right? Which is they want Membu to play, right? Well, not Membu. They didn't get Membu. Who's the other guy? Essery, Ariante Essery, right? They wanted Essery to play. And Essery, they wanted him to play left tackle. And then they have other guys that they can move around. And Cam Robinson's the one guy who famously will never play anything other than left tackle.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we got to bench somebody. You know?
Yeah.
We got to play Essery. He wants to play left tackle. Because what happened in that game was interesting. And again, it does not scream that great things are happening in Houston, right? Like every time I look at Houston, I'm like, ooh, there's a problem. There is a problem there, right? Because what happened in that game was Essery was terrible at right tackle. So they must have asked him, hey, what went wrong? And he said, maybe I do better at left. Again, not great. Not great at all. Not great. But if he wants to play left tackle, then Cam Robinson has to go somewhere. He's not playing guard. Right? Like, he's not switching to right tackle. He's been adamant about that. Like, it's not a shot, right? And then they probably were like, oh, he's not a team player, right? Or whatever it is, right? But I think that's why Cam is available. For those who are like, oh my God, how bad do you have to be to get benched off of the Texans line? I don't think the Texans line is bad because I think the Texas line is bad because they're making some very poor decisions for very poor reasons in Houston right now.
As regards
to offensive line, right? Like, why did they trade Laramie Tunsil? Really look into why they did that. That's really strange, right? They signed Cam Robinson and then they bench him, play, Essery. And it's like, well, what are you doing there? None of this is consistent with a team that actually feels like they can win right now.
Yeah.
But they're also in a position where they have to win right now. So, yeah, I say all that to say, there is a silver lining there, right? Like he was not the worst lineman that the Houston Texans had by far. I thought he was one of the better ones that they had on that team, right? He's going to get to Cleveland. I don't know if he's going to be able to play this week, right? But I mean, again, this doesn't say great things about the tackles we've had play. And I have to include DeJuan on this. When I watched Cam Robinson's feet, I was like, oh man, I forgot the tackle's feet were supposed to look like that. like it was like, oh yeah, he still has good feet. His hands aren't great. He can't hand fight as well anymore. And his ability to drop the anchor isn't amazing, but he still has good feet. And I think that's going to be he's decent in the run game too. So I think that's going to be extremely helpful for them. I think a big part of why the run game was so limited had to do with the limitations that they've been dealing with at left tackle all season, even with DeJuan Jones. DeJuan Jones, who I think has potential as a pass protector, very limited as a run blocker, right? To the points where all you can really ask him to do is down block. Cam's not going to be as limited, but how long is that going to take for him to get there? He's a veteran, right? He's run a lot of systems. So, you might just be able to be like, hey, man, run this, run that. And I think you can use KT Leviston in the intermediary, right? I wonder this week if they try to do something interesting where it's like, obvious rundowns, they run out KT, and then, obvious pass downs, they run out Cam Robinson, and then they do some intermixing there, right? Like just to kind of fill in the gaps for what they don't have right now, to kind of plug some of these holes, and hopefully Jack Conklin gets back too. But yeah, I thought that trade was interesting. I know Cam Robinson's not like going to be an exciting name, but hey, if he's like, for what we're asking him to be, I think he's all right.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, with the way that this offensive line has really gone this year, especially, it's literally treading water until you're able to get Jack back. And I mean, even that, it's gonna be. We'll see how long it takes for Conklin to get back, because I'll be interested to see how that kind of plays out. Because again, once you get those really settled, I mean, obviously you still have the same interior offensive line that you've had. And granted, Wyatt has had some struggles this year. Joel is injured. I mean, Stefanski even said it after the Green Bay win that you know Joel Batonio had struggles walking, like, but yet at the same time, the dude will go ahead and go out there every Sunday and he'll go out and block no problem.
I'm about
But
to
like,
say, like, since the back injury, he's been actually pretty
yeah,
good.
which is hilarious to say. Because
His
again,
best football of the season.
right. God, technique is fantastic. It's great when you can't move at all.
Yeah.
But again, that's where like when you have him on the interior, obviously you still have Posick, and if you're able to really like shore up those tackles, because I mean, hell, again, like I know I keep going back to it too, but like the fact that 2023 you were down to your offensive tackle 4 and 5, and you
Mm-hmm.
picked up Jerron Christian off the street, like you had him and you had James Hudson, who got benched in the Giants this year because he got 4 penalties on one drive. Like, again, we've seen poor tackle play, but at the same time, it's especially when it comes to like the quarterback position in general as well. Like, again, if you're able to get at least decent time to throw the ball down the field, then I think that Dillon is one of those guys that at least will be able to quickly read through some of that. Whereas, maybe Joe is taking a little bit of time in going through. But again, like you mentioned, when you lose the faith in the offensive line, and you clearly could see that against Green Bay, when you lose the faith in the offensive line, it leads to poor decisions, and it leads to just the poor decision making, and it leads to turnovers. And that's kind of where I'm looking at this as like, is he a rookie? Yes. Do I expect there to be struggles? Absolutely. Again, there's a reason the dude went in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Let's also be like very honest about this too, because I think that I've seen some like unfair comparisons on like Twitter, or calling into the station at times too, and even on the station, of like, oh well, this is Stefanski and Barry's guy. And it's like, guys, and I understand he was a third round pick. He was a third round pick. He might have been the first quarterback they took. And hey, maybe they think that he's a great long term backup, but he was a third round pick.
What's the
Like,
guy in Houston's name? He's a backup there. He just
Davis
got,
Mills.
yeah, like Davis Mills is an acceptable outcome for a third round pick at quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I look, people are so like tied into like wanting to prove a narrative right or wrong, right? Like that's kind of like how people operate these days. It's like, oh, well, I believe this, and I will rearrange everything to fit into this belief system, and that means like, oh, well, this is Andrew's guy, and it's like their guy isn't the guy that they take in the third round. Their guy is the guy that they take in the first round, right? Like that's that. If they draft Mendoza next year in the first round, or they trade up, to get Mendoza in the first round, or Dante Moore or Lenore Sellerson, yeah, rightfully so. That's their guy. They pushed the
Yeah.
chips in. They went in and got that guy. The guy that they picked with the extra third round pick they got from the fucking Amari Cooper trade. Like, yeah, my bad, y'all. Amari Cooper trade, that guy's not supposed to be the face of the franchise, right?
Right.
Like he's not even the face of the draft class. So like, or even like people using like Shador is like, oh, it's like a fifth round pick, right? Like, I know in Cleveland for whatever reason we get third round pick disease. Like I've seen all these posts about Andrew Berry can't draft in the third round, and then you actually look at who he's drafted in the third round, you're like, what are you talking about? He's fine. Like,
Yeah.
he's got like 6'2" contract players in the third round in 5 years. It's like, it's what you want.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
where
So
it's like,
it's
you just want somebody that's a contributor. Like
yeah.
at the end of the day, like you want somebody that can be a meaningful contributor or rotational player there. Like,
Yeah, like at best, I think because like for me, I try to be realistic about this, and then people yell at me from both sides of whatever argument people are having on Twitter, right? So this ain't gonna be any fun for me. But like I think the best case scenario for a guy like Dillon is that he could be a transitional quarterback, right? You're talking
Yeah.
about, Davis Mills is kind of a transitional quarterback. I would say he's probably on the lower tier of that, right? But somebody who could hold the fort down for maybe a year or two. Like let's say you draft Lenore Sellers, you have no interest in playing him year one, which would probably be the role that you would do if you draft somebody like Lenore Sellers. You can say, hey, we could play Dillon for the whole year. We could be fine. We could even compete, right?
Yeah.
And if he like at best the transitional quarterback is like Alex Smith when he was in Kansas City at the end, right?
Right.
But if you could be in that range of quarterback play, if you can just get to the points where you can say Dillon can start for us. Yes, we're looking for better, but Dillon can start for us, and we don't have to trade for Kenny Pickett. Or we don't have to consider taking on Tua, right? Like if there are conversations that if the Browns can successfully stay away from this offseason, I consider it a win, right? Hey, let's stay away from the trade for Tua conversation, right? Like if we can stay away from the trade for Tua conversation or the, hey, some people might feel differently, but like, I think Geno Smith is starting to get to that point to where it's like, I don't want to be the team that trades for Geno Smith at this point. Right? Or are you going to get Kirk Cousins? Right? Like if Dillon Gabriel is simply good enough for us to avoid those questions, right? Where we're not, let's bring in Russ, right? Like we're not having these the conversations we had last year, basically.
I was going to say, I've heard
nobody.
plenty of those conversations.
Yeah. We have nobody. So we're talking about, well, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo deserves a shot, right? Like,
we're avoiding the Carson Wentz conversation.
Yes. If we can stay out of that tier of quarterback because we have Dillon Gabriel, I consider it a success, right? Like that is where my bar is. I don't think that's a horribly low bar. I don't think people understand how hard it is to get a quarterback to be that good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the most common thing in the world. It sounds like a low bar because they're like, oh, you're saying he has to be better than Carson Wentz, but
right.
I mean, Carson Wentz still in the league for a reason. Like, and it's not because Carson Wentz is amazing. It's just the quarterback plays just not that good, right? Like, so like getting somebody who can keep you out of those conversations is very useful. As long as you're not like, oh, we're gonna build the whole franchise around that guy, right? But it gives you flexibility. Like you might get to this class, you might do your research and say red flags on all of them. I don't want to do it, and you got to find a way to get to 2027. Well, you got to have somebody who can play quarterback, right? And you can only do so many years in a row of, well, let's go see what this guy has. And let's go, do we want to trade for Daniel Jones or whatever it is? Like,
right.
You only got so many years of that you can do. So if he can put this quarterback position in a nice transitionary state, I will consider it a win and be happy with it. Like, I think some people are like, won't be happy unless he turns into Brock Purdy. And I'm like, it's so unrealistic. That this guy
and that's why, like, I almost even look at it too, like another third round quarterback that the Browns had previously that fits perfectly. Colt McCoy. Like the guy physically limited, but handles everything well in the meeting room, is loved by the locker room, and stayed in the league for 12 plus years. Like, the guy was a solid backup and came in. There were a few times where he would have his random starts. I still remember Monday Night Football where it was him with the Cardinals against the Cowboys with Brandon Whedon and with the Browns mid quarterback bowl. But no, like having him come in and having him be a guy that like, hey, you can go ahead and bring him along. Only downside was that Mike Holmgren thought that he could be the guy, but no.
And then he decided to transition into Brandon Whedon, which was the real crime there, right?
Like, yes, that was a panic in and of itself. That's a different story for a different day.
Yeah, they hired the only guy in the media who thought that was a good idea the next year.
Yeah, awesome. No kidding. But anyway, no. So like, I look at, what the expectations are for Dillon. And again, I think that Dillon's a guy that can be a solid, capable backup.
Hmm.
and can be a spot starter. And I remember talking about this after they got him, and after like I kind of sat with it for a while. And again, not to keep bringing up old Browns quarterbacks, but like all I thought was if he can beat Brian Hoyer, that's a win.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think it's important to point out that that's just not for the Browns specifically.
yeah,
That's kind of the target for any quarterback that you draft in the third round or later, right? Like, especially just all right, the water good. The water
yeah,
good,
Water's
Mac.
great.
The
Second
water's
round's
great.
great.
Second round's great. Well, you ain't in the finals, so
Yep.
yeah.
How many
Shout
how
out
many
AJ
playoff wins did
Wilson.
you guys have?
We ain't gotta talk about that. We ain't gotta talk about that. We gonna get AJ in the free agency period, so we gonna get
Oh
it.
yeah, okay.
But yeah, but in all seriousness, like at the quarterback position, when you're drafting somebody in the third round,
Mhm.
you're like hopeful that maybe it turns into something more.
Yeah.
But every team would be willing to accept, you know, a third round pick who can transition Cherry start for him. Like, hey, our starters out. Like Cincinnati right now would kill for somebody like that, right? Like, who if they drafted somebody in the third round, which like I've talked to people in Cincinnati, they're gonna do this year, or at least that's the vibe. Is they might take a Carson Beck if he falls to like the third round, right? With the
Yeah.
hope of like, hey, if we could have somebody behind Joe Burrow who could be kind of a transitionary starter, not because you want to transition from Joe Burrow, but it's like, hey, if Joe misses 8 games, you feel like you got somebody you can go 500 with,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and even another
Um,
example too, Minnesota when they took Kellen Mond. Like they took
yeah,
Kellen
no
Mond
doubt.
behind Kirk Cousins, and
Yeah.
he sucked so bad
Mm-hmm.
that he couldn't play here, and then he couldn't play in the UFL. Like again, that it's the extremes of it, where it's like
Yeah.
you hope that you can have somebody, even if it's an older starter and you have an established starter.
Everybody thinks like it's going to be Dak, it's going to be Russ, right? When you draft these quarterbacks super late. But the reality is, you know, you're like, so a lot of you like what? I think Kyle Trask is out the league right now.
Yeah.
He was a second round pick. you
Yep.
know um so there's a lot of like there is a lot of wish casting that we do with quarterbacks whenever you draft them. We're like, oh well, this guy worked out here, and that's a round before Brady, and it's like, yeah, we know these guys because they're so unique that they're famous, but like the reality is that Dillon is still a third round pick, um and that has its limitations when it comes to where the Browns are going to view him, right? As far as
Mhm.
the future goes. But also, like, you know, there are some physical limitations there that you have to anticipate becoming a little bit of a problem. The question is like, hey, is he talented enough or is he savvy enough to overcome it? But last thing we'll say on Dillon, and then we'll move on to our next subject here. Well, probably our next video, but we'll move on, is how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, considering, the circumstances, going to London, playing against Brian Flores, no Cedric Tillman, offensive line is being what it is. What's your expectation level of success for Dillon if you can give it a 1 out of 10 grade?
I'm gonna give it about a 7,
Mm-hmm. You
honestly.
think?
I think that again, you have your struggles at tackle, but I think that his mobility helps him enough there. But also because of the run game that you have as well, I think that that gives you a solid floor, a solid baseline for him. And the other part of it too is that I think you might get more explosive plays given the fact that I think that Dillon because he looks through his progressions a lot more than I think we've seen Joe Flacco do here early. I think that he's going to be able to go ahead and get somebody like an Isaiah Bond down the field. Like he might be able to get to some of those explosive plays that I think that we've seen Joe just miss on a few occasions. So I the reason only a 7 is because you're going up against Brian Flores, and so you're going to have those disguises, those blitzes that he's going to go ahead and dial up. So I think that I'm trying to set the fair expectations, but I also do think that they're going to have some success, and I also think too, I think that defense is going to be able to eat on the other side. So I think that they could have some short fields potentially in this one, depending on turnovers that they're able to generate.
I hope I'm wrong. I expect it to be a struggle.
I mean,
I'm
it's
gonna,
also fair. Like, I
yeah,
can't dispute it at all.
yeah. And like, look, I have already said I don't care what he looks like these first 2 games.
Yeah.
Like, I anticipate it to look bad. If he looks great, then okay, we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But I anticipate he's going to look bad. I hope that the Browns have the stomach to get through it if he does, right? And I don't know, maybe years of experiences has put me to the points where I'm like, I have to account for it going wrong, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm
yeah,
just the eternal optimist, so I get it.
yeah, it's just, these are 2 defensive minds back-to-back weeks that specialize in confusing young quarterbacks. And look, Dillon, he might be very talented, might be a really good processor, but there's just some shit you don't see in college, right? That you're going to see in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm wrong. I expect him to struggle. I just wonder if those struggles are going to include a ton of turnovers or not, right? Like, I think that's the big question there. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. Dillon Gabriel going to play. Interesting conversation with Mac. Make sure you check him out on 92.3 The Fan.